Hey crew, it's Ben, and I'm back with another Bible study. If you're unfamiliar with what we're doing here and you want to follow along, I suggest you start at the top of the playlist because I hold some rather unconventional views and I would hate for your feelings to get hurt. What we are doing here is a literal reading of the Bible and we're discussing things, and I hold some very unconventional beliefs, so you should probably start at the top. That being said, we're going to dive into Exodus 14 because we left off at Exodus 13. And at the end of Exodus 13, what it was said was the pillars of cloud and fire. They are being guided now by a pillar of fire at night and the cloud in the day. Right, I got that right? In a pillar of cloud to guide their way by day and pillar of fire by night. So yes, I got that right. I thought so, but so that is the power and the presence of the Lord. They can physically see a pillar of fire and cloud to guide them in the direction to go. Right? That should be enough for unwavering, unshakable faith. Right? If you were being told to flee, and as part of being told to flee, there is a pillar of fire in front of the 3 million people that you're taking out into the wilderness, so that all 3 million of these people can see it and follow it. It should be enough for some unshakable faith. Let's see what it is. Pharaoh pursues the Israelites. And the Lord says to Moses, "Tell the Israelites to turn back and encamp before Pi-hahiroth, between Migdol and the sea. You are to encamp by the sea, directly opposite of Baal-zephon." So let's pop over to Google Earth. Make sure y'all can see. And let's see what we're talking about. We are now... I'm going the wrong way. Alright, so we have fled the land of Goshen up here in the green spot. And instead of going across here to this green spot that is their promised land by God himself, who is going to lead them into, take over this land, instead of going straight there by the narrow path to get there, they go south, and they go very far south to the Red Sea, right? This is the Gulf of Suez. This is the Red Sea. Now, when they talk about the parting of the Red Sea, I'm positive it's not, the middle. I think that it's probably right here. It is possible that it's right here. Let's look at the landscape real quick, because they're to encamp opposite of a mountain. So, I would not say, if I was leading the troops in the wilderness, that this would be the opposite of a mountain that I would really want to be. Because, you're way down here. You might see way off in the distance, right? But if you come up here to the top, by the way to get to Midian, right? Midian's right over here. This is the land of Midian, where his Jethro, his father-in-law, lives. I believe that they camped here, right? Just outside of the Narrows here at the Gulf. They may have made it all the way down to the Red Sea. This was probably considered the Red Sea and not the Gulf, right? But I believe that they were right here in this little shallow area. There's an entire possibility that both tides and some strong winds could definitely blow it out of the way. There's a lot easier for magnetics to influence it by holding it a staff aloft and channeling magnetics. That would definitely be a thing. And so there's also mountain range over here. Now, it has been lost into the histories exactly where this spot was. But it was probably not at the beginning of this mountain range coming south. But there's a good chance that it was down here at the bottom of it. Especially since it looks like it's getting narrow here. Like, you would definitely be able to see that it's shallower here as you're traveling along. And it's the first place that you can really see that it's shallower. There's an entire chance that Moses came back this way whenever he crossed. There's probably ferries that run through here. There's probably, I don't know about bridges, but there's probably some mode of traffic that makes it convenient to get through here. And it's a lot better than trekking through all of this desert. If you can just wander down the coast, catch you some fish. Water's going to be a little iffy, but you do have, runoff and tributaries and stuff. You definitely don't want to drink the salt water. But this is most likely where they were. Like, that's what I'm going to assume, and I'm just giving you the logic of why I assume it, right? And so they come here, and they get to this area, and they're like, okay, and this is opposite of several mountain, like that's a whole mountain range, so there would be peaks visible. According to the names given here, like I did a look, try to see where the names were. Pi Hahirith, completely lost. Nobody even knows how to translate that. Between Migdal and the sea, they're not even sure where Migdal is. Opposite of Baal Zephon. I was like, all right, well, that seems like it would probably be a thing. So I looked up Baal Zephon. This is in Syria. That's like literally not even possible for what they're trying to do in this story. And so we don't know. We do know that it was close to the Red Sea. We do know that the parting of the Red Sea, so they definitely were south of Egypt. That's about all we know. I'm making assumptions. I'm letting you know that I'm making assumptions. For Pharaoh will say of the Israelites, they are wandering the land in confusion. The wilderness has boxed them in, right? And that's another thing. Let's look at Google Earth, right? The wilderness here is the desert. They are boxed in here. They are boxed in here. It gets really rough down here. Like, it's not a pleasant experience to be in the desert. I don't know why people want to fight over real estate in the desert, but they do. I have been there. It is not a pleasant experience. I have passed through this strait, down this channel, through the Gulf and into the Red Sea and around the Arabian Peninsula. I have been in this specific area in the summertime, which they left in the spring. I was late spring, early summer when I went through. And so it was hot. I'm talking about miserably hot. The seawater injection temp, which we run our air conditioners off of seawater, was 95 degrees. So there was no chance of getting anything cold, right? And that's with modern technology. He's leading 3 million people, right? We've talked about the numbers. I'm going to go with 3 million going forward. 3 million people. That's not fighting adults. That's not 3 million people, children, livestock, through the desert. The only way to do it is to either hug the coast right here, close to the cooling winds coming off the coast. You have forage, you have fish, you have oysters and clams and things like that nature that you can eat on, which is funny considering the dietary laws that they get later. Or you can track up the Nile here, which is heavily populated and you're fleeing. So it's a lot more likely that they went kind of close to the sea here and not necessarily too close to civilization because they were fleeing. Okay, now, I will gain honor by means of Pharaoh and all his armies, and the Egyptians will know that I am the Lord. That's true, right? After this happens, they all converted to Judaism, every single one of them. So this is what the Israelites did. When the king of Egypt was told that his people had fled, wait, what? He told them to go. No. You can't be changing the story on me. He told them to go, but now he is being told that they have fled. Pharaoh and his officials changed their minds. How did they change their mind? He didn't tell them to go in this same sentence and said, what have we done? We have released Israel from serving us. The same verse has two different versions of what happened. If you really look at it, right, you can look at this and be like, well, translation. Or you can look at this as the inerrant, unfailing word of God. If you look at it that way, you have a problem. I don't have a problem because I see it as an amalgamation of stories. I see it as them putting together a network, a framework for their people, and it worked for that. Not necessarily for truth, though. And so Pharaoh prepared his chariot and took his army with him. He took 600 of the best chariots and all the other chariots of Egypt, with officers all over them. Okay, so backtrack the numbers. We had 600,000 men. And so he took 600 chariots. Okay, even if you can manage to squeeze 10 people on each of those chariots, you're looking at 6,000 people against 600,000 arrayed for battle. That's not even a competition. There's no reason to run from that. Not if you're going to be a people. You got to stand at some point. This should be the point right here. You have the chance to choose the terrain. You have the chance to be rested while Pharaoh is pursuing and is not. You vastly outnumber the army. Let's say that he doubled his chariots, right? He took the 600 best and another 600. Even then, that's only 1,200 fighting men. And okay, did he muster a 600,000 man army to go along with these chariots? It doesn't really say that. It does say he took his army with him. So, okay, maybe he had 500,000 standing army that he took with him along with these chariots, right? Even still, you choose the terrain. You're rested, they're not. They have pursued you through the desert. They are days behind you. They are at pursuit speeds. You put the women on the backside and the men go out and meet and conquer. Catch them in the middle of the night. Y'all are good and sneaky. Y'all do all kinds of sneaky stuff at night. We'll get into that. And so, why not? Why not do it? Why be scared? You've got a pillar of fire. How is Pharaoh charging a pillar of fire? Right? Like, granted, he has just seen all of these plagues on Egypt. And for some reason has decided, you know what? No, bring them back. They just killed everybody's firstborn son. Bring them back. Let's see what else they can do. No. Again, it's the logical consistencies that are the problem. The reason that we get sermons and it's not reading through, right? If they break it into pieces and they tell you this is related to this way later in the book, and therefore that way later in the book justifies this piece now. No. What we see repeatedly is inconsistencies and logical problems. Like, it doesn't make sense. Like, even if he will completely disregard all of this, all of these plagues, whatever, he is charging into 600,000 men arrayed for battle. Like, I don't know that people even understand. That would be like the entirety of several nations' armies. Like, he's charging into them with his nation's armies, even saying that we've got a battle of 1.2 million people, right? Even say that they're equally matched, which is probably not true. All the firstborn died. All the animals died. How are they pulling the chariots? Now they got 600 chariots if all the livestock's dead. Whatever. It's the logical inconsistencies that just add up and add up and add up. Oh, and the Lord hardened the heart of Pharaoh, king of Egypt, so that he pursued the Israelites who were marching out defiantly. The Egyptians, all Pharaoh's horses and chariots, horsemen and troops, pursued the Israelites and overtook them as they camped by the sea, near Pi-Hirith and Baal-Zephon. Now, Baal-Zephon, another thing, that is the mount of Baal. Baal, king of the winds. That is what Baal-Zephon means. Baal is the god that they sacrificed the children to later. The ones that we're not supposed to acknowledge. He was the god of the land, was Baal. It's important to remember that as we get several reference points throughout. As Pharaoh approached, the Israelites looked up and saw the Egyptians marching after them, and they were terrified and cried out to the Lord. They said to Moses, "Was it because there were no graves in Egypt that you brought us into the wilderness to die? What have you done by bringing us out of Egypt? Did we not say to you in Egypt, 'Leave us alone so that we may serve the Egyptians'?" We didn't get that part of the story, did we? For it would have been better for us to serve the Egyptians than to die in the wilderness. We have a zealot that has whipped up the people, and they have fled. They've assaulted their captors, not even saying it's unjustified, right? If they were truly being treated as harshly as they remember, I'm not even going to say it was unjustified to go in and do what you did in the middle of the night and call it the Passover. And so I'm not even going to be mad about that, because it is right to free yourself from bondage. Now, if it is impossible to do it without shedding the blood of man, you probably should just, I don't want to say just live with it, because I would rather die than be a slave. And that's just ingrained so deep into me that it is hard to submit in that way. But I'm not going to shed the blood of man to stop it. And I'm definitely not going to sneak in the middle of the night and go joogie at nobody. And so, But they're saying here that they wanted to stay. Like, we didn't even get that part. That part was not in the previous, because we're being told that Moses just showed up and everybody's like, yeah, that's a great idea. Let's go. Let's run off into the desert. Let's go serve this God that we don't even know. Because they didn't. They were not a people. Until they come out of this, they were not really a people. They were a bunch of slaves who have a common history. I wonder where that's coming from. Does that seem to be repeating today? Do we seem to have anything about that going on today? Of people who were in slavery, completely forgot who they were, and then cohesively joined for sacrifices? That seems to be a running theme. Now, but Moses told the people, do not be afraid. Stand firm, and you will see the Lord's salvation, which he will accomplish for you today. For the Egyptians you see today, you will never see again. And the Lord will fight for you. You need only to be still. Now, this right here should be more than enough going forward. Again, right? We've already had plagues, and they have been saved, right? They have been spared from the plagues that this entire nation has been plagued with. That should be enough. They have been led through the wilderness, out into the thing by a pillar of fire. That should be enough. And then the Lord said to Moses, all right, so Moses told the people, do not be afraid. Stand firm, and you will see the Lord's salvation, which he will accomplish for you today. For the Egyptians you see today, you will never see again. The Lord will fight for you. You need only be still. This is completely absolving personal responsibility. I get that it is relying upon divine timing, something that I do myself quite heavily. It is relying upon divine will, something I do myself quite heavily. But if you are being pressed to tell them, no, I'm going to kill everybody for you, there's a problem there. There really is, because it is taking the responsibility for their own safety from them. And God wants you to be responsible. He tells you that throughout as well. It's well hidden, but it's there. And then the Lord said to Moses, why are you crying out to me? Tell the Israelites to go forward. And as for you, lift up your staff and stretch out your hand over the sea and divide it, so that the Israelites can go through the sea on dry ground. And I will harden the hearts of the Egyptians so that they will go in after them. And then I will gain honor by means of Pharaoh and all his army, and chariots and horsemen, because it wasn't enough with all the plagues. And the Egyptians will know that I am Lord when I am honored through Pharaoh, his chariots, and his horsemen. All right, unpack. Why are you crying out to me? Wait, what? The Lord will fight for you. You need only be still. We are told this a lot. And then the Lord says to Moses, why are you crying out to me? Then we have a contradiction here, y'all. And again, this is glossed over. It's apologized for, but this is a contradiction, because God is telling Moses to take responsibility for the parting of the sea here. Now, Moses gives the credit to God, and I'm not going to say that that's the wrong thing to do, but what this line is saying is that you are supposed to be doing this. He told him in the beginning, right, go free my people. And he's like, I can't, I talk funny. We don't know how he talked funny. I talk funny. I can make fun of people that talk funny. If you got your panties in the water behind that, too bad. But I can't. I talk funny. Well, I'll make a way for you. And then he goes and he's like, perform these miracles. And he's like, I can't. And he gets Aaron to do things. Moses, this whole time, is being told to do the thing. And he is the whole time delaying the responsibility. He is putting it off. Lord says to Moses, why are you crawling out to me? Tell them to go forward. He hasn't told Moses he was going to part the sea prior to this. What he told him is that this staff can manipulate water. You've got water here. Why are you talking to me? Hold out your staff, rise up the water, and bring your people through. Man, that just stepped on some toes, didn't it? I'm sorry, but I'm not. And I will harden the heart of the Egyptians so that they will go in after them. Now, again, if you're the Egyptians and you're chasing these people being led by a ball of fire floating in the air in front of them, are you running through the wall of water? I mean, really, honestly, are you just going to run between two walls of water? I'm not. I'm that dude that just deserted. Like, y'all go on. I think I got to tie my shoe. I'll catch up. I'm not going through that water. It's not going to happen. I don't think Pharaoh would have either. Now, the holding it up and, well, let's get into it. And the angel of God who had gone out before the camp of Israel withdrew and went behind them. So the angel of God is the pillar of fire. That might be a spaceship, y'all. Imagine that. Whoa. Boy, we just stepped on a whole nother set of toes. But what if it was? What if it was a craft that spits fire and it's just... Would you charge it? I'm not going to charge it. Right? But the angel is who he's talking to. That is who he's talking to. It's not God himself that he's talking to when he says, why are you talking to me right here? Why are you crying out to me? It's really the angel. Now, they're saying it's God, but that's not what they mean. What they mean is the angel. And he withdraws and goes behind them. So you're Pharaoh, and you've got your army that has just marched down this extensive desert. It is a long journey, y'all. And you're tired, you're hot, you're bothered, you've already lost the firstborn of your entire kingdom. All of your crops are gone. Hail has decimated things, frogs, gnats, flies, all of these really terrible things have happened. And then the ball of fire charges at you. Now, it stops, but it's way on the other side of these 3 million people, leading them forward, probably just barely visible because, he doesn't want them to see him. We get into that later. But then the angel comes zipping back across 3 million people. That's an extensive bit of real estate. If you got 3 million people on the ground in the desert, there's going to be a lot of them hiding under trees, right? There's a lot of heat. And so he comes whipping across in this ball of fire, and you're Pharaoh. And this giant ball of fire goes from way over there straight towards you and stops. Are you charging? Are you going forward? I'm not. Again. But the Lord hardens his heart. Okay, so maybe Pharaoh knows about UFOs. Maybe we have some evidence of that written on walls. Maybe there is some magnetic manipulation that they're familiar with. Maybe they think that they can do what's being done. They have replicated miracles before. So, okay, they charge. But why would God claim credit for hardening the hearts and killing these people? Did he need to do that to bring glory to himself? Do you have to do things to get glory as God? God created everything. And if he created everything, everything brings him glory. Yes, even death, but this, to me, personally, speculatively, is a blood sacrifice. Very much the same type of blood sacrifice that took place for them to leave. In order for them to be able to leave, a whole lot of people had to die. A whole lot of blood had to be spilled. And now, in order for them to leave, a whole lot of blood's going to have to be spilled. And that is the demand of the Lord. It's not a consequence. It's not something that just happens because it's something that God is being explained as planning. Like extensively planning. You know how hard it is to get 600 chariots through the desert? I mean, come on. So, we're talking about God has brought these people here just to kill them. That's a big deal. I don't care if you want to apologize for it. If you want to believe that it's okay, do you, boo. But to me, this God bringing all these people here just expressly to die. Now, we can get into, and we have, the fact that Israel sold themselves into slavery for survival. They wanted to go back. And yet, God is demanding the sacrifice of all these people. Not once, at least twice. And so, and the pillar of cloud moved from before them and stood behind them, and so that it came between the camps of Egypt and Israel. The cloud was there in the darkness, but it lit up the night. So all night long, neither camp went near the other. So he didn't charge. He's like, whoop, nope. And Moses stretched out his hand over the sea. This is at night. Again, at night. All right, we had the sacrifice at twilight. Like, sacrifice the lambs to redeem yourselves. And then we had a sacrifice in the middle of the night. And now we have another sacrifice at night. And so he holds out his hand over these waters with the staff in his hand, right? And I've talked before how I believe that the staff is a tool. It is not powerful in and of itself, but if you're trained in its use, you can direct energies through it. I absolutely believe that. I am working on some of those things myself. And so, not very effectively at the moment, but I am trying. And so, he holds out the staff, and he parts the sea, right? Stretched out his hand over the sea, and all that night the Lord drove back the sea with a strong east wind and turned it into dry land, and so the waters were divided. Now, if it was just an east wind, let's look at it. We're going to assume my spot right here, right? And so it's an east wind, that means it's coming from the east. So it's blowing this way. How's it making a wall? How's it making a wall? I think that the east wind is the magnetics that's being referenced, and that's not in a word study. I can't extrapolate that out for you. That is me making a supposition. But I believe that the east wind is the manipulation of the magnetics. And he forms the toroid of the magnetics, and it pushes the water back out of the way. There have been considerable experiments done with magnetics and electricity. The Thunderbolts Project does a wonderful job of showing these and how magnetics can attract water up and move it and separate it and make it do all kinds of things. So to me, it is not beyond the realm of possibility that what is happening here is he's magnetically manipulating things. This staff probably is lost technology from prior to the last destruction, like pre-flood destruction, like the last fire event, the advanced civilizations that were here before Genesis. And so the Lord drove back the sea with a strong east wind that turned it into dry land, and the waters were divided, and the Israelites went through the sea on dry ground, with walls of water on their right and their left. Again, we're talking about the east wind separating the waters. That's just not, it's not logically consistent, right? But if it was the magnetics and the toroid, it works. And the Egyptians chased after them, all Pharaoh's horses, chariots, and horsemen, and followed them into the sea. At morning watch, however, the Lord looked down on the army of the Egyptians from the pillar of fire and cloud, and he threw their camp into confusion. He caused their chariots' wheels to wobble, so that they had difficulty driving. Let us flee from the Israelites, said the Egyptians, for the Lord is fighting for them against Egypt. Oh, that just clued you in, huh? That's where you pick up that clue. That's where you pick up that clue. It's not during the plagues. It's not during the Passover. It's not when the waters roll back. It's when you get in the middle and the wheels start going wobbly. Again, explained by magnetics. But and so we get to let us flee from the Israelites. And then the Lord said to Moses, stretch out your hand over the sea so that the waters may flow back over the Egyptians and their chariots and horsemen. So Moses stretched out his hand over the sea, and at daybreak the sea returned to its normal state. So as the light breaks, the waters fall back, and the human sacrifice is done. And as the Egyptians were retreating, the Lord swept them into the sea. The waters flowed back and covered the chariots and horsemen, the entire army of Pharaoh that had chased the Israelites into the sea. Not one of them survived. But the Israelites had walked through the sea on dry ground, with walls of water on their right and on their left. And that day the Lord saved Israel from the hands of the Egyptians. And Israel saw the Egyptians dead on the shore. And when Israel saw the great power that the Lord had exercised over the Egyptians, the people feared the Lord and believed in him and his servant Moses. So, let's see where we're at on time real quick. Okay, yeah, we'll go ahead and wrap this one up. We're not going to get into 15. I thought maybe we would, but we're not. So, what we've had here is a ginormous human sacrifice, right? They, defying all reason, have chased them through the desert and into a tunnel of water while witnessing miracles happen, right? Like a ball of fire. That's unexplained to them unless they knew about aliens. And so then the wall of water, like, okay, maybe they thought they could replicate it. But then the wheels, and that again leads me to magnetics. Maybe they got terrified. Maybe they went back. But regardless, the whole point of it was to kill them. They didn't have to, God didn't have to send them after him. If you take it for what it's been done for the last 4,000 years, it was to bring glory to him. Well, that glory is not what he needs, right? He wants people to turn and repent and come to him. And so what we have is a giant indicator that once again we are not serving the right side of things in this. Once again, despite the best efforts of men, we still see, redemptive arcs, and we still see the truth of God's nature, like it's revealed to us despite the best efforts of men. And I do believe that what's being done here is one of the best efforts of men to hide things. I do believe that what we keep seeing is logically inconsistent things, even considering the miracles, right? Especially considering the miracles. Like there's no way you're going after the people being led by the glowing ball of fire. Not as a primitive society, right? And Egypt was well above everyone else in the area, but they were well below where we are now, right? According to our knowledge. And so a giant glowing ball of fire coming at you is going to terrify you enough to just turn you around. You're not going into the wall of water. And so it's the logical inconsistencies that's the only point of them is to pound home that God is vengeful, God would kill you, God is mean. And while that may have served for them to have discipline, and it obviously did, they're still following the discipline now. And so it served a purpose. The purpose was to help us get a framework so that we could be better men than we were. Because back in these days, it was quite terrible. And if not for the principles laid out in this book, freedom would not exist today. That is all true. But all of these things, every single one of them should point you to the fact that God never required a sacrifice. The other side did. And so if you're dealing with sacrifices, you're dealing with the other side. Hopefully I brought a little bit of enlightenment and not too much confusion to a very complicated topic. I know that I am stepping on a lot of toes here. I know that I hold very unconventional beliefs. I have spent an extensive amount of time confirming them to myself that I hold them for a reason. I am conveying it to you because he has told me to do that. The time for this is just about done. And so we need a new framework. There is a new something coming. We can settle it on God. And that's, I believe, is what he's going to tell us as we go through the rest of this book. To the crew, thanks for hanging out. I appreciate every single minute that you are here with me, and I am praying for you every single day. Until next time, I love you. You're perfect, whole, and complete just the way that you are. And this has been Pittstake. Peace.